to this episode of Horrific History and Hauntings. I'm Beth.
And I'm Randy. We're your hosts, here to talk about the stories that the history books ignore.
From horrific epidemics and ghostly hauntings to the catastrophes and tragic events that have sickened humanity.
Yep. It's the same day as the last one, so I'm not going to go into spill about the new eBay shop and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We'll do it at the end of the episode. So what happened again today in history? It seems like every day now there's another national park announcing they're going to be closing for parts of the week. That's a pretty big tragedy.
Yeah. Dr. Seuss was born in 1904.
What was his real name?
No, it wasn't.
I said, what was it?
Oh, I feel like I mentioned this.
The last time we recorded on this day?
Well, Congress abolished the African slave trade in 1807.
You know, that's a pretty big one, Beth.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a horrific.
The Battle of Bismarck Sea began in 1943. Ford celebrated the 1,000,000th Mustang. I don't care about that.
Did you look up horrific history? Are you finding bad things?
No. I go to the history.com.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I get
Yeah.
the newsletter. I just don't look at it on days like this. I see a title, and nowadays AI kind of summarizes what's in the email. And if it's something I don't think I'll be interested in, which I guess is the point in the whole AI summarization thing.
Oh, World War I,
That's a pretty big deal.
1917, Puerto Ricans became U.S. citizens and were recruited for war effort.
Now, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
Oh, that's today in history. In part 4, we discussed more of Gacy's victims. We went into more detail about him getting a little more ballsy. And we talked about Jeffrey Rignall, who survived his horrific torture and rape from Gacy, and how Jeffrey patiently waited to find Gacy's car and followed him home.
The stalker got stalked.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he was a stalker so much as just see opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know which one he was.
And then we left off with the murder of 15-year-old Robert Peast, which finally led the police to investigate John Wayne Gacy properly. On December 12th, John Wayne Gacy became a person of interest in the disappearance of Robert Peast. This was because Gacy was the last person seen with Robert at the pharmacy that he worked at, so police began to monitor his activity and watch him. During questioning, Gacy admitted to encountering Robert at the pharmacy, but he denied any knowledge about his disappearance. When Lieutenant Joe Kozenzak took over the investigation, he uncovered a connection. Robert's workplace, the pharmacy, had recently been renovated by the company owned by John Wayne Gacy. There were also witnesses that said Robert mentioned a potential job with Gacy at the pharmacy. As I mentioned in the previous episode, he had contacted his mother to tell her about the job opportunity with a man named John.
Because he had plans for her birthday.
Mm-hmm. All of this put together had police finally looking at John Wayne Gacy as something's up. At around 9 p.m., Lieutenant Kozenzak and 3 detectives arrived at Gacy's residence to request that he come back to the station for further questioning. Gacy was making it very clear he was irritated. He claimed he was waiting for an important call from his mother. And when detectives pressed the issue, Gacy accused them of being disrespectful towards the deceased. He told them that the call he was waiting on was about his uncle who had recently passed away. He's blaming them for disrespecting the dead?
Yeah, he just kind of tosses them into rivers and under the house.
At 11 p.m., Gacy called the police station to make sure that they still wanted him to come in for questioning. But by 1 a.m., he still hadn't arrived. It was later discovered that the delay was due to him moving Robert's body from the attic to the Des Plaines River. So I'm guessing that he was there when the lieutenant...
No wonder he didn't want them running around the house.
Yeah. At 3 a.m., he finally arrived at the police station, and he was covered in mud.
Oh, no. That's not obvious.
Well, at this time, Lieutenant Kozenzak and the detectives had already left for the night. So they told Gacy to come back later at a decent hour, not 3 in the morning.
What's a businessman supposed to do?
Gacy returned at 9:15 a.m., and he denied any involvement in the disappearance of Robert.
I'm here. What do you need? And I gotta go.
Yes, but Lieutenant Kozenzak had already found out about Gacy's prior sexual assault and sodomy charges that involved young teenage boys.
Somebody actually just had to look into it for a few days.
He did a background check.
Yeah.
He was able to swiftly obtain a search warrant for Gacy's house after this. So investigators were combing through Gacy's property when a curious neighbor approached who was just trying to see what was up, what's going on, being nosy.
Yeah.
vacuuming the yard. From this neighbor, investigators learned about the attic and the crawl space, but they didn't really want to focus on those areas at the time.
Well, who wants to go crawling around under a house if you can look other places first?
Yeah. Among some of the items they took from Gacy's home was a 1979 Oldsmobile Delta 88, Gacy's work van, 1978 Chevy pickup truck, a piece of rug with stains on the bottom, clothes, including underwear, of course, an address book, porn films.
That's a weird thing that they do. They consider that to be a sign of indecency. I don't know if they still do it, but
Maybe if it depends on the kind.
I guess.
Well, they also found a needle and syringe, marijuana, bottles of pills, a pistol, rope, handcuffs, a switchblade knife,
Now, that stuff I could see causing some issues for his plea.
a driver's license that belonged to someone named Michael Baker,
There we go.
obviously was a victim,
Hmm.
a high school ring that did not belong to Gacy, a driver's license that belonged to James O'Toole, a collection of books with some unsettling titles, such as Sex Between Men and Boys. Who the fuck is the author to this? Is what I want to know, because they need to be looked into.
Wow.
I could be judged. That's a horrible title, but
Might make sense like in Rome back in the day
Yeah.
or something, but who writes a book like that now?
yeah. So there's that one. There was also 21 abnormal sex cases. Now this third one also need to
Where
figure
do you
out
even
who the
find
hell.
books like this?
Oh no, wait. We need to find some authors.
No,
And
I don't want to
some-
be a part of cancel culture.
Mm.
I say whoever wrote these books is long dead anyway.
The third one was called Tight Teenagers.
What?
Of course, they found the rack as well. They found an interesting piece of evidence, which turns out to be good in the long run. It was a receipt that belonged to Robert.
Oh, I mentioned it in the last episode.
Due to all this evidence and suspicious items and books, that where in the world did you even find those?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Kozenzak ordered 24/7 surveillance on Gacy.
I'm not pro book banning, but how does a thing like that exist? Now, I'm not pro book banning, but I do agree that some things probably shouldn't be in schools, and that's
Yeah.
certainly some of them.
I don't think those were in schools. I don't know where he found those.
That is wild.
Yeah. They were not very subtle during their surveillance.
Oh, no.
They made it very obvious.
Oh, they wanted to make him uncomfortable, if
Yeah.
I recall. Yeah.
So Gacy reacted to this by claiming to anyone who would listen that he was being harassed by the police.
Well, to any normal person watching, it would seem that way, since they weren't being subtle.
I would just wave the book that, well, this is what we found.
Come look at his library.
Oh.
He'd be a social pariah.
Robert's family didn't give up their search because at this time they hadn't found him yet.
Yeah.
They kept pushing.
Because apparently the cops have memories of goldfish.
And obviously Gacy didn't like being watched by the police because how was he supposed to torture and murder innocent young boys while constantly under surveillance? You know, his life goal, I suppose. So he hired a defense attorney and filed a lawsuit against the city. He was trying to get $750,000 for damage to his reputation, his loss of liberty, mental anguish, and claimed that they were withholding private property, which was evidence. And of course, he wanted the surveillance to be stopped as well as the money.
I want the money. I want the surveillance back. Give me my books. You know how hard those are to find?
I would say pretty difficult. To try to piss off the police, Gacy began driving around without a destination, just having them, which I
There
mean,
goes the taxpayer dollar. Buy the gallon.
he even began taking pictures of them. One day, he actually invited Detective Robert Scholes and his partner into his home for breakfast, though.
Might as well. If they're
Okay.
going to stick around, you might as well
Yeah.
get to know them.
And they accepted this invitation. They went into his home. And while using Gacy's bathroom, Detective Robert noticed as the heating system activated, there was a powerful stench of rotting
Oh,
flesh.
that's right. They all forgot about the crawl space. They were told about it. They could have just been down there. They had a search warrant.
In the middle of the night on December 21st, Gacy drove to his attorney's office with Officer Mike Albright and his partner following him. Gacy entered the office in a disoriented state. I think he was drunk, and proceeded to confess his crimes to his lawyer.
Wow, their persistence worked.
Well, it's his lawyer. The officers were then instructed by the lawyer to prevent Gacy from leaving by any means necessary. Pretty much told them, keep him trapped here. Do not let him escape. But obviously, it is Gacy's lawyer. So he refused to tell the detectives why,
Yeah.
but he warned them do not let him leave.
He's saying, hey, the guy's guilty. I can't say it, but he's guilty, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, he's lost all credibility in criminal law by doing that. Of course, you got to think of the moral implications if he hadn't.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he's a decent lawyer.
Yeah.
He's being as subtle as he could possibly be without breaking his own laws.
Yeah. Despite this, Gacy did end up driving off the parking lot. So the detectives followed him to a service station where he sold a kid marijuana right there with them watching. The officers decided against an arrest for this immediate transaction that took place right in front of them, but that's because they wanted to keep watching. Obviously, he told his lawyer something. They don't know what at the time. They know something's going on. He's acting erratic.
Yeah.
Is that the word I'm looking for?
He's not acting normal.
Pretty much see what else he's going to be ballsy enough to do or slip out. So they followed him back home and watched him walk into his house and then back out with his dog, which he took to the neighbor's house. And it turns out while he was there, he was telling the neighbor that he was being falsely accused and asked the neighbor to care for the dog while he was dealing with this situation. The dog was good. The neighbor said, okay. Just so
it's a good dog.
Yeah, it's a good doggy.
He didn't do any of the murders.
Yeah. At least he cared for the dog, I suppose.
It's the last remnants of his marriage, I guess.
The following morning, Gacy appeared at his friend's house and admitted to him that he had killed, quote, around 30 people, give or take a few.
I don't really know exactly, and I don't think we'll ever know exactly.
So, hey, buddy, how's it going? Nice to see you this fine morning. Just so you know, I killed around 30 people, give or take a few.
Did his buddy tell on him?
Oh, well, just see.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Good friend.
He attempted to justify his actions by claiming that his victims were bad people who was trying to blackmail him.
Every single one.
All 30. You are a hated person if that was true. At 10:55 a.m., Gacy made a visit to Michael Rossi and David Krams, the two that had lived with him before briefly. At around 11:30 a.m., they came out of his house and got into a car. Before leaving, Gacy approached the officers and asked them if it was okay if Michael took him to a restaurant. And they said, yeah, but followed him. Once they arrived at the restaurant, David walked up to them and told them that Gacy wanted to visit the cemetery to say goodbye to his father. The officers warned David to get out of this situation because they were afraid Gacy was planning suicide.
It does sound like it.
Yeah.
I guess he might realize once he goes in, he will not be getting out to say goodbye again.
But despite that warning, David chose to continue with Gacy's request.
I think this dude knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
I might be just talking.
Well,
but
that
remember
one
that
guy,
one kid said he'd seen another person there. And is that the dude that lived in the bed with him for so long?
No, it was a different guy. Wait, you're talking about his friend?
That lived there with his wife in the same bed as Gacy for so long?
I think one of them might have been.
Yeah, I think there's no way they couldn't. I mean, they were nearly victims of it themselves.
Jeffrey did say he thought he saw another person in the room.
I mean, this is just gossip. I don't know, but it does make sense.
Yeah.
Don't believe anything I say.
Yeah.
His visit with the guy and his reluctance to get out of the situation after what Gacy put him through, if that's the same guy. I don't know. This guy, if you're still alive, I apologize. It's just, from what I just heard in the story, it sounds a little sketchy.
Yeah.
Or you could just be a cool friend.
Maybe. I don't know.
This is your version of the last meal before the guy's gone.
Well, David chose to go on. He got in the car and he drove Gacy to the cemetery. But as soon as they left the cemetery parking lot, Des Plaines Police Department, Cook County Sheriff's Department, and Illinois State Police, all working together, pulled the car over. They were also informed of him selling the kid pot.
The marijuana at the time was a pretty big, it still is some places.
Yeah. This, with the confession to his friend, caused authorities to finally arrest him.
So he told his friend and his friend told.
Yeah.
Thank goodness his friend had some integrity.
While in custody on a $1,000 bail for drug possession, Gacy confessed to killing a man. He said it was in self-defense.
30 times or so.
Give or take.
Yeah.
He told the officers that the body was buried under the garage. He tried to say he didn't want them ripping up his floors elsewhere in the house, that he was just going to tell them that the one body was in the garage. This didn't work out for him.
If it had worked out, it'd have been like, good for me, I did it.
One whole body. Yeah. That's it. That's all you got.
He tried.
The officers informed him that they were going to search the crawl space. At about 10 p.m., a medical examiner showed up to Gacy's house to help with the search. Upon entering the crawl space with its assistance, they quickly discovered skeletal remains. Initially, they suspected that the bones belonged to one human body. They soon realized that the remains they found were older and had no flesh left on their bones. So this confirmed for them that this body was not Robert.
Yeah.
Robert wouldn't have been decomposing that quickly.
A little bit fast for that.
They said that the odor in the crawl space told them that the remains were not limited to just one single body either, especially one that was just skeletal remains, no flesh. Obviously, it was not just a few bodies either. So here they decided to take a break and return their search during the daylight where they can actually see what they're dealing with. And that's the end of part 5.
Stopping here. That search is going to lead to horrors untold. Will there be a part 6, I'm guessing?
Yeah, there's, it's going to be quite a few parts because...
trial and everything and all the bodies. 30, give or take.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun, educational, if nothing else. Thank you for listening. If you want to hear more, we're part of the Gruesome Gaming Group Podcast Network. We have other podcasts called Leveling Duo. It's a podcast where me and Beth or me and someone else, my friend Dakota, talk about video games that we've liked. It don't come out very often because we don't always play new video games. And we can't talk about the same ones every day. We have Brother Knows Quest. It's been on hiatus for quite a while, and it will continue to be, but it will come out again. But there's a big backlog of them if you want to go through them. It's about tabletop role-playing games. I'll tell Beth here about a different one every week. If you want to find those, there's a Linktree link in the description. It will take you to all of our socials, our podcast website where you can follow our podcast. It'll take you to our YouTube channel where you can find our podcast, and the other YouTube channel where you can find all us playing games. There's also all our socials there, and an eBay link if you want to see some of the stuff that we have for sale. It's not merch or anything. We could put merch in there. Also, I've thought about making customized spots in our recordings if someone wanted to send us messages to read out to someone they know, or if they have friends that listen and want to hear them, that we could not auction off or anything, but charge a small thing just to put them in. Let us know if that'd be interesting. I think the McElroy's brothers did that for a while, and they got too many and they couldn't keep up. But I don't think we'd have that problem. Yeah, just finding ways to help keep the podcast supported. We've narrowed it down to a few things. Anyway, there's also an option to give us a tip below the link tree if you want to do that. But like I said, if you want to really help out, share the podcast, leave a review, or just buy something from the eBay store, or however you want to do it. Have any special requests? Just message as a seller, or message as a buyer, or Facebook. However you want to get a hold of us. We have a Facebook group called Horrific History and Hauntings. Join it if you like. And I guess that's about it. You have anything else to say?
No.
All right. Thank you for listening. I've been Ramey.
And I'm Beth.
This has been HH&H. Bye-bye.